Whenever people hear the letters UFO, fantasy and speculation follow.
So what's that got to do with me?
It's a government-wide concern.
Everybody wants to know what our new project is that we're working on for this week, and I sketched out some pictures of a craft, picking up an elk, and I just kind of leave them around some podiums for people to find, and we're getting some buzz created, just by leaving little hints around. There's some folks that are looking forward to these lessons every week.
Can you bring one of those drawings with you next time?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to see this. That's right, ETU crew. You know what time it is, the place. Time for another episode of Extraterrestrial University featuring the one and only Tone, Crooks, and I'm Dundas. And I want to hand it over to Tone as we start working our way through. This is a fun one. We had a chance to introduce a few different elements last show. And with this one, I'm excited to have Pat's Pop Culture Corner. I'm excited for this one. Tone, you came up with a good idea. We got to talk about ALF last time. I'm really excited to see where we go with this next one.
You were in your element last week with Pat's Pop Culture Corner, double P, double C, if you know what I mean. And we're going to bring it this week, too. It's pretty shocking in the description. I didn't think something crazy like that existed, but I'll let you handle that part of it. And we'll be looking, I think, you fellas are starting to surpass me. Or at least we're all kind of getting on the same level here. You sent me some stuff in the group chat where I'm like, what's that? And so I think we got a lots of fun surprises. But this week is my pick, and it might be mine, the last one for a few weeks. We're going to be looking at an elk abduction here in the great evergreen state of Washington near Mount St. Helens. So I'm super pumped, super excited.
And Crooks here joining us again. Glad to be back, guys. I think this has been a fun journey so far. And this elk abduction I'm excited about. We finally get to meet one of our heroes we've heard so much about, Mr. Peter Davenport. So as we queue up the footage, I'm excited to see him again.
Yeah, lesson 7. And with this particular run, I was curious about, this is like physical elk were abducted, like a herd of elk?
Yeah, I guess we gotta get our popcorn and get settled in, and we'll wait and see.
All right. Well, as we work our way to that, I figured we would jump in and see a trailer of what awaits us in the Pop Culture Corner, which was an episode of Miami Vice. And I was excited about this one because I know when we were talking about who the guest stars are.
Trudy hasn't had any sick days in ever.
She's not working on any cases on her own, is she?
You know where Trudy is?
Parts of a dream, they get lost when you wake up.
Take her home. Stay with her until she starts making sense.
Whenever people hear the letters UFO, fantasy and speculation follow.
So what's that got to do with me?
It's a government-wide concern.
Classified flight tests do not explain the fact that people are missing. Memories are evaporating, and bodies are disappearing.
Trudy, what's happening to you?
That's just the preview, just to be able to wet our beaks a little bit. So, Crooks, I can tell you were loving the missing hours. That I don't think the episode is that is exciting. That whoever cut that trailer did a really good job. I think it was like a fan or something. But
Yeah, I started cracking up when James Brown appeared in the trailer there, but from some of the research we were doing, prepping for this episode, they said the last couple years of Miami Vice, it kind of started to fall off, and people actually were pointing to this episode as potentially the worst one in the series. But for our purposes, it may be the best one.
Tubbs and Crockett, and I tried to reach out to Tubbs, asking him to talk about this episode, and I've been ghosted. I wonder if that's purposeful. If this was considered to be the worst episode,
He may want to forget all about it.
Yeah, but we can get more into it later. But I thought it was a good teaser to get into at least the beginnings of it, anyhow. So, but yeah, Tone.
Well, Pat, it was a good pick. I mean, when you laid down all of the basically the cast and crew and the story arc, I was like, wait, James Brown and Chris Rock on Miami Vice, and I didn't know, is it Edward James Olmos?
Yeah,
as well. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
I like Edward James Olmos. He was awesome. He's been in a lot of movies and TV shows and stuff. But for that was Chris Rock's very first television appearance.
I know, that's incredible that that happens to be the first time he was on TV.
Yeah, I want to say that was like 1986, something like that. It ran for 5 years, but yeah, the back half of the series is known as not as good as the first couple years.
Yeah, you can tell there was some UFO nerd that was like, please give me this one episode.
Well, it's interesting that it was directed by, what they say, Drop Dead Fred, which was an 80s movie that was a comedy. But all right, so we want to jump into our next one here. So this is from Missing 411, the UFO connection, and we're talking about the Elk Abduction. And one thing that keeps kind of reoccurring is there is a lot of interesting things that happen in Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, I feel like in Western Washington and that part of the state. What is it about those mountains that draw this kind of attention?
Sighting where they coined the phrase flying saucer appeared at, Mount Rainier in Washington. I think it's pretty cool that, some of these things are right here in our home state, but I don't know. These are active volcanoes. Maybe there's some kind of energy, that's drawing visitors.
No, I mean, Crooks, it's I know that we kind of, the giggle factor jumps in there when we say stuff like that, but based off of kind of some of the stuff that Beatriz Villarreal has been studying or uncovering, is that there might be some sort of monitoring system according to the plate study she's done off old telescope plates, pre-satellite era. And so it's pretty intriguing. It's been in a couple of science magazines. So what am I looking for? It's not magazines, journals, right? A couple science journals. And so maybe there's something about active volcanoes where some sort of AI, maybe it's an AI that system that just kind of is monitoring and people will see once they dive into the video that wow, this other thing seems like maybe some sort of surveillance scenario too.
And I wonder if they're monitoring, understanding what kind of havoc could be raised. Because I mean, if Rainier or Mount St. Helens were to officially blow, it would be catastrophic in what it would do to Western Washington as the cities that we know it. Seattle, Tacoma, extended. And I often wonder if maybe that could be it too. That they show up every now and again just to make sure that the human race isn't screwing things up too bad.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a great job, but yeah, the Cascadia plate too, isn't there a lot of concern once that thing slips? There's going to be a pretty big earthquake on the
Yeah,
west side.
yeah, and it's the way the models suggest is that it would wipe out the epicenters of Western Washington, and so that's pretty scary to think, especially for three Washingtonians that have been over that side of the mountains quite a bit. I just couldn't imagine a world where that happens.
Yeah, we live in between that and then what is it? At Yellowstone, right? That's basically a giant volcano.
Super volcano, yeah. Old Faithful. If that were to go, I mean, if that system of volcanoes were to go, yeah, we're all in trouble. I guess we're surrounded on both sides. So, but yeah, let's go and get into it, and then we can talk about it a little bit. So, Elk Abduction and Peter Davenport. Crooks, are you getting a Peter Davenport T-shirt?
That might not be a bad idea. The guy seems like a hell of a guy. He's devoted, 27, 30 years of his life to this, and it honestly felt like I was sitting there in his living room with him. Seems like a real approachable and likable guy.
We just need to drive up there, do a round of golf, and then just because I think I told you guys on one of the shows I stopped by in a pizza place, and the lady in town knew him, and so if we can't get a hold of him, let's just go stalk him.
Well, is this the guy that lives outside of Harrington?
I think he's living in Harrington now.
Oh, okay, all right.
But yeah, I think he used to live in some sort of old missile silo. At least that's what it said on the local news back in the day.
Okay. Well, that's not that far to go then. So I know Crooks wouldn't mind getting around in at the Harrington Country Club.
Yep, definitely done that before. That's a great 9-hole track out there.
Yeah, I like where it's called the Country Club because aren't most country clubs at least 18 holes?
Pat, I know where you're going with this. You're teasing this Harrington Country Club. I just got to say that during the dark days of COVID, that was kind of unofficially open.
It was a sanctuary.
Yeah, it was a golfer. It was something to do while everybody wasn't working for a few weeks. But I think you have a connection to that place, Pat, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, my parents' wedding reception was at the Harrington Country Club in the late 70s. So yeah, I have a strong connection to there, considering that I have two aunts and an uncle that also graduated from Harrington High School. So there we go. All right, let's jump into this, gentlemen, and
let's talk UFOs.
Considering this, I had a good friend in the state of Washington that is really a UFO expert, and I want to take it to him.
My name is Peter Davenport. For the last 26 years, I've been the director of the National UFO Reporting Center, and that's what I do. I'm a UFO investigator.
What is the difference between MUFON and what you do in your organization?
Well, they're two separate organizations. MUFON is an older organization, and MUFON is more of an investigative body. It's a membership organization. The National UFO Reporting Center has one member, and that is I.
Do you ever investigate any of the reports you get?
Yeah, once in a while. I've investigated an elk abduction, and I've investigated crop formations. It takes a lot of resource to investigate a case.
You brought up the elk case that you investigated in Washington.
I was actually at a conference when the call came in. He told a story about 14 or 15 people, I think it was, who were out planting trees on a hillside on a big piece of property owned by a commercial logging company. They had seen an object approach from the east, and they stood there and watched it for a few seconds. He called the object to the attention of the workers, and they all looked up and saw it as well. And it flew towards a herd of elk that these guys had been watching all morning long as they worked on a hillside. All the elk bolted to the northeast to heavy cover, except for one hapless elk. And the object lifted the elk off the ground, and it started moving slowly in the direction in which that herd of elk had gone. And it came to a large tree, an evergreen tree, and bumped into it, interestingly, and backed away from the tree, and then suddenly shot to the north and went over the nearest ridge to the north. I called the individual back who had made the call to the hotline and who had left a message, and arranged to travel to the site.
Was the company that the property was on assisting in this research?
They directed question to Peter Davenport, let's put it that way.
So were they interested?
Definitely.
Was there one general nationality of the workers?
Hispanic.
Or would they speak English?
No. Nobody really knew exactly what went on until we got some good translation. That's when I decided we needed to get somebody that was, one, in the UFO community, and two, could translate well. And that's when I contacted Ruben down in California.
I had contacted some of the workers and to arrange for us to meet. And to gain their trust too, because these gentlemen were pretty shook up. I would say they were in their late 20s, early 30s. They were married, have families, very responsible folks. The three witnesses saw this object slowly descending and then went toward the elk herd, which caused the elk to run. But he was able to see the object picking up the elk.
It was not a big object at all. The witnesses emphasized how surprised they were at how small it was and still be able to lift an elk out of the forest.
What they did was they looked at the elk, they looked at the craft, and they said, well, okay, if the elk is this big, the craft's got to be somewhere between 6 and 8 feet long, about 5 feet wide, with a little indentation in the back, about 18 inches thick. It had a red and a white stripe that weren't lights, but the white stripe was like a bright enamel paint. The red stripe was a duller color.
So when the men in the group saw this craft take the elk out of sight,
yeah,
what was the distance from where they were to where they finally saw it?
I would say the trees where it ran into was a quarter mile. But basically, I think it became a small dot before it disappeared into the cloud cover. The object was silent, and as soon as it got over the elk was basically paralyzed. It looked like it was a statue. It was just stiff.
The distance of the elk from the craft always stayed consistent?
Yes.
How thick was the cable between the craft and the elk?
There was no cable. There was nothing discernible that was holding the elk to the craft.
The movement was like a coin.
It was a slow oscillation. It took about 2.5 seconds for it to complete a cycle. And it's as if you've ever spun a coin, and when that coin is getting lower and lower, so it's almost flat, and it goes around on its rim, that's the type of oscillation.
What are the chances, Peter, that could have been some kind of test vehicle that our military has and they were just trying out their technology?
About as close to zero as you can get.
Could the craft have been a helicopter?
No.
In your research as an investigator, is that common?
Yes, many times. So in reports that we get from witnesses, they'll say that they heard no noise at all.
Did you ever go out and try to find the elk?
We did. We found what we think may have been the elk. It was a dead creature by the time we got to it, but we did a cursory examination, could find no bullet holes, no arrows sticking in it, no wounds. It had good teeth. It was well fed. We think it was a female, pregnant female elk.
Describe the setting that you saw the elk in.
It was beside a road, and it was in the valley to the north of the valley where these men were planting trees. It leads me to suspect, but have no evidence, that the craft flew over the ridge to the north of where these men were working and may have dropped the elk or lifted off.
So how many days was it from the time that they saw the elk get pulled up by the craft until someone found that elk on the road?
The elk was found before 7 days had transpired.
Does that case rank up there with you as far as strangeness and credibility?
Yeah, it's a pretty strange case. It's not every day that witnesses see a UFO, what we presume was a UFO, an alien spacecraft, lift an animal off the ground and fly off with it. That's pretty unusual by any measure.
Were any of them concerned that, hey, maybe one of these things should come over and take me?
Yeah.
Did they voice that concern?
Yes, they did. Some weren't quite sure if they wanted to go back to the woods and work again.
Listening to his voice, and I could really see the actual event that's happening to him as he's describing it. And he was shook up about it.
Is he emotional?
From what I recall, he had a hard time sleeping for several days after he saw that. His words were whether it was something prehistoric or it was something extraterrestrial.
So when you heard that this elk was taken and you heard the witnesses, at the end of the investigation, what was your belief? Credible? Incredible? Borderline?
It was credible. Everyone was credible. No one appeared to be wanting to foist a story about anything. It was just the opposite. They were reluctant, really upset them. They really didn't even want to think about it.
Did they give you any indication at all that this was fabrication?
No, David. I would stake my reputation. No, they were telling the truth.
After the interview, I received a call from Robert Fairfax regarding the dead elk.
Hey, Robert.
Hi, Dave. Yes, I'm calling back because when we did the interview, there's a couple things I forgot, Ken, but I did meet with a representative of the company. When Peter and I initially went down to find out, they had a chronic wasting disease, which is a prion disease that attacks the brain, and they had been finding quite a few dead elk in the area.
So in the 1980s in the UK, there was something called mad cow disease. It's a prion disease, and it infected cows. In the UK, they initially said that these animals couldn't transmit the disease to people, and they said not to worry. Well, it ended up transferring to people, and it killed hundreds. And the UK ended up slaughtering over 4 million cattle because of this prion disease that we know as mad cow. Well, in the US, there's something that's come about where chronic wasting disease is now infecting deer, moose, elk, cervids, and this disease is spread across the US, and it's centered on Colorado and Wyoming. This disease is fatal 100% of the time to all cervids. The state governments of each of the 50 states have told hunters to get their animals tested and not to eat the meat of an infected animal. And they've never stated yet that this can transfer to human, but it's consistent in that it says, don't eat the animal. Chronic wasting disease seems to be something that is out of control. State and federal governments don't have an answer on how to control it. And right now, it seems as though there's some type of monitoring going on across the US of these infected animals. In Washington, Peter Davenport identified one case and attributed it to CWD. Now, he identified a case in the state of Idaho involving hunters.
Yeah, so that was a nice piece of footage there discussing this elk abduction. I'm imagining, this group of Mexican or Hispanic workers out there in a hillside planting saplings for some logging company, presumably some hillside that they'd already previously logged. And yeah, they were watching some herd of elk all morning from I guess their vantage point up on the hillside down in the valley below. It was, I don't know. I'd be something to see, man. If you saw a UFO come tracking in from the east, like they described, and hovering over an elk and picking it up and carrying it off, man, I can't imagine what those guys thought was going on.
Well, I think that would be a major ontological shock. First off, just the craft, and then it's picking up the elk. And when they asked Mr. Fairfax, well, what the cable looked like, and he's like, there was no cable. As far as they could see, they could not discern anything. If this is, I mean, Peter Davenport thought there's no chance this is human tech. But man, if we have that technology and it's being suppressed or not being let out into the open for the rest of us to use, either way, it's a concerning situation. But the ontological shock, to get back to that with the workers, they couldn't sleep and didn't want to go back to work. I would be in shock as well.
Yeah, it seemed to be legit, if you have those guys that are saying that, from Reuben and the rest of them believe that was an honest assessment, that these were three guys that were genuinely scared and concerned. And it's interesting, like we reviewed Westall in the previous lesson, and genuine kind of comes across when you talk to people. And I get that with Peter Davenport. It's a guy that seems very genuine, has a lot of information and a lot of knowledge. All those guys, all three of those guys that were interviewed, bring to the table a lot of knowledge of things that are beyond a lot of people's comprehension. So I think it's interesting to kind of bring about. But yeah, what have been your thoughts, Crooks, when it comes to the idea of the elk? Because and then I started talking about chronic wasting disease, and I started wondering, I'm like, are they monitoring this? Perhaps that they're trying to get a hold of this before it runs rampant, possibly.
Yeah, they hinted that there's a problem ongoing with deer and elk, moose. They're all part of the same family, that cervid thing that they were hinting to.
Yeah, no, it's legit for sure. In Wyoming, Colorado, definitely. But even you'll see, I mean, I'm not a hunter myself, but I have a lot of friends who are hunters, and they'll talk about that, especially in Washington, Idaho, Oregon. It's a main feature. All the departments of, fish, water, wildlife for each of those states, they're all definitely talking about it and getting the word out there that this is something not to be trifled with.
And so if it wasn't, some government agency or something like that, why would they not tell the public, hey, we're working on this stuff, we're going to be, taking care of this situation? Why would it be so mysterious and strange like that? An oscillating craft that makes no noise, 18 inches thick, 5 by 7 feet, with looks like a couple of sort of pills on the top, a red and a gray one. I mean, just bizarre, really bizarre.
And not a traditional jet propulsion system.
Not at all.
Like you would affiliate with most aircraft that would be a military related, or any aircraft for that matter. And just the way that it moves and how quick it is, and the silent aspect to it as well, because it didn't sound like, they could hear it coming. It just kind of came there. And yeah, and it's wild, it picks up this elk and then just goes away. But then they're finding the elk too. So it sounds like, somebody was doing something with it, trying to experiment or figure it out, or I don't know. Pretty interesting thing though. It's a whole new world each week, Tone. When you're all these things, I never know what I'm going to get into.
Yeah, well, it's like last week with the Westall Australia. All three of us were like, wow, there's a lot of stuff on this, but it hasn't reached a worldwide audience. But when you think about hidden in plain sight, that's the title of Ross Coulthart's book. I think we have a situation where this thing is also hidden in plain sight. The workers didn't want to talk about it. I mean, Crooks, you don't go in, after, I mean, if that happened to me, I wouldn't be like, guess what, everybody? This weekend I saw an elk get picked up by a flying saucer. Like, all right, Mr. Haynes, time to go home.
Yeah, it sounded like these guys were genuinely scared, and they evidently reported it to their employer, the logging company, and the logging company is the one that referred it to Davenport for investigation. They wanted to know what the heck was going on out there.
It must have just been their curious minds wanting to know what it is, because obviously the media didn't pick it up. They didn't want to go to the media. And I mean, I wouldn't back then. Now I would. I'd be telling everybody if it happened to me now. But understanding that the stigma is sort of being lifted now compared to back then, I'm guessing that's why we didn't hear about it. Like, it just seems like that's a pretty big story that should be covered, but it just wasn't. And that's sort of the frustrating part. Hidden in plain sight is how it's so easy to cover these things up because they're so crazy.
It is, for sure. Sorry, man. My cat was pawing at the door making a bunch of noise, so I had to step out so I could let him in.
Has he been kind of sketched out after the Alf episode?
Well, yeah, I feel like every cat in my house is probably concerned at this point. Last thing they want to be is be part of a submarine sandwich. And Miami Vice was known for a lot of famous guest appearances of people that were on that show that became, well-known television personalities, actors, actresses, all kind of wide variety. I wish I would have brought a list of all the different people that were on Miami Vice as guest stars that eventually made their way towards fame. But I thought that was pretty cool with Chris Rock, and of course with James Brown. I'm not sure what else James Brown has been in as an actor.
Missing Hours was directed by Dutch director Ate de Jong and was written by Hugo-winning sci-fi author Thomas M. Disch. This is the episode that's always used as shorthand for how Miami Vice really went off the rails in later seasons because, well, Trudy gets abducted by aliens. We open with Switek and Trudy conducting a stakeout on a porn dealer outside a movie theater. Izzy and Vice's old informant Noogie, whom we haven't seen since Season 2's Trust Fund Pirates, are also on the scene. They're dressed up as space explorers and are engaged in a sword fight for no reason other than a sense of madcap whimsy. A man carrying a shopping bag approaches the movie theater, then pants in distress when he spots Izzy and Noogie. He rips off his shirt and throws a bunch of jars of peanut butter at them, then dives through a plate glass window and dies. Even though the man, who turns out to be named Akers, sustained multiple lacerations, most of the cuts have magically healed on his corpse. Akers was found with a photo of a houseboat named the Saprophyte on his corpse, so Trudy decides to do some investigating on her own. A saprophyte is a plant or fungus that lives off of dead or decaying organic matter, which probably doesn't have anything to do with this episode, but it's good to know. Trudy locates the houseboat and climbs aboard. It seems to be abandoned except for a cuckoo clock, a lot of electronics equipment, and 12 jars of peanut butter arranged in a circle. The sky turns orange, and a world-famous R&B singer named Lou DeLong, played by world-famous R&B singer and godfather of soul, James Brown, boards the boat, while Brown's 1965 hit, I Got You, I Feel Good, plays. For the rest of this analysis, I'm simply going to refer to I Got You, I Feel Good as I Feel Good, because I'm pretty sure that's how we all know it. When Trudy sees DeLong, we enter a strange montage featuring ominous skies, capped with a weird moment where Trudy's face is briefly superimposed over DeLong's. It's all very David Lynchian. This is a sequence that would not be out of place in Twin Peaks or in any of Lynch's films. Akers' wife Rona stops by Vice headquarters and asks to speak to Trudy about her husband's mysterious death. Crockett and Castillo are concerned because Trudy hasn't reported for work. Rona, who's played by Felicia Rayfield, tells Crockett that she and her husband were abducted by aliens in Nevada 2 years ago. She goes on to tell a deeply skeptical Crockett that she woke up several hours after the abduction with missing memories and a patch of hair shaved from the back of her head around what looked like a needle injection site. Crockett takes her to the coroner to identify her husband's body, but it has disappeared from the morgue. It turns out Trudy had released the body to a non-existent funeral home before the autopsy had been concluded. A young police file clerk named Carson pops by to tell Vice that Akers' case is a hot topic on a computer bulletin board dedicated to discussing alien abductions. Carson is played by a fresh-faced Chris Rock 3 years before he joined the cast of SNL and then go on to film and television stardom. Right then, Trudy strides into headquarters singing I Feel Good and sets the photo of the houseboat on fire. Trudy denies releasing Akers' body. She claims she and Lou DeLong were at a disco last night. Carson grills her on the details of her encounter with DeLong, but her memories are fuzzy, which Carson claims is classic memory displacement caused by an encounter with a UFO. DeLong, who claims to be a former UFO abductee, is conducting a seminar on UFO abductions that Crockett, Tubbs, and Carson attend. Crockett and Tubbs take DeLong to see Trudy. He's certain he and Trudy have never met, and Trudy is equally certain she spent the night with him, though she insists it was a younger version of him from his 1960s heyday. DeLong believes Trudy went through an alien abduction, and the aliens have given her false memories of meeting him. Castillo sends cops to investigate the houseboat, and all they can remember afterward is an unlikely tale of having coffee and donuts with 1950s sex bomb Mamie Van Doren. Crockett and Tubbs head to a motel to talk to Rona, but see her being abducted by two men in dark suits. When they try to pursue the kidnappers, Crockett's Ferrari stalls, and then they're bathed in white light from above until the kidnappers get away with Rona. A police psychiatrist hypnotizes Trudy to help her remember what happened on the evening she thinks she met Lou DeLong. She recalls strange visions of jars of peanut butter and cuckoo clocks and flames. And again, I swear I've seen this episode of Twin Peaks. Gina and Trudy visit the houseboat, where they find Rona Akers dead with a shaved patch on the back of her head. Gina notices that Trudy has a similar shaved patch, which causes Trudy to freak out. Tubbs finds DeLong sitting on a stump in the middle of a charred circle of radioactive Earth in the middle of nowhere. DeLong, who is there to meet with high-end sponsors of his UFO encounter group, claims the ring is caused by a UFO landing. Tubbs and DeLong are observed by two men in dark suits. As Tubbs leaves, he's trailed by the men. He turns the table on them, they flip their car, and he arrests them. The men claim to be government agents involved with conducting covert flight tests, which are often confused for UFO sightings. Trudy meets with Carson, who shows her some weird posts on the UFO bulletin board that feature an endlessly repeating series of coordinates. They go to the houseboat to use its electronics equipment to track the coordinates. Crockett and Tubbs head after them and find the houseboat being towed by a man named Travis, who is an associate of DeLong's from his UFO encounter group. Tubbs and Crockett board the houseboat and find Trudy and Carson, dazed but fine. Crockett confronts Travis, who has court papers giving him legal possession of the boat, which was willed to him by Akers. As soon as Crockett, Tubbs, Trudy, and Carson leave the houseboat, it explodes. And Trudy wakes up in her apartment because this has all been a dream. She heads into headquarters and is shocked to find a jar of peanut butter and the photo of the houseboat in her desk drawer. This is often considered the worst episode of Miami Vice, which is simply not true. Off the top of my head, I can easily name 10 episodes I like less than this one. There's actually something interesting going on with this episode, especially if you ignore the "it was all a dream or was it" tag ending, which is pretty boneheaded. You can argue pretty easily that this episode, which is straightforward science fiction, has no business existing in the world of Miami Vice, and I would agree with that. But taken at face value, this is a pretty cool, weird tale of alien abductions in Miami and a possible government conspiracy to hide them. And while it makes no attempt to solve all the mysteries it sets up, for example, what's the deal with the peanut butter? I think it works fairly well. It's got a lot of offbeat stylistic flourishes that make it seem more like an 80s music video than a traditional episode, and it creates a pretty evocative atmosphere of dread. I like Chris Rock as Carson, the highly excitable young clerk who is obsessed with UFOs and who might be an abductee himself, and Miami Vice will never have a guest star bigger or cooler than James Brown, who, just due to his rarefied level of mega fame, almost has an alien quality to him anyway. I'm not saying it's a success, it's quite clearly a failure. I'm not even going to say it's not bad, but I like it, and I think there's more to it than critics usually give it credit for, and I'm giving it 3 flamingos. Next time, Crockett is swept off his feet by Sheena Easton, and Miami Vice will never be the same again. Meet me back here then, and find me on Twitter to discuss this very strange little episode, and I will see you later.
But man, yeah, thoughts. Anything that jumps out to you? There's a number of things that we could go with, but Tone?
Pat, don't put it on me, man. You got some stuff simmering. I know, man. Come on, what do you got?
I'd like to know more about the jars of peanut butter in the circle.
That's not ringing any bells in UFO lore. I have no idea.
I thought maybe there would be some case that you might have awareness of.
Well, there was one case where it involved a lot of peanut butter.
Yeah, to have the 3 in the circle. Yeah, there was all kinds of interesting parts to that. I enjoyed it. Like things that people consider bad, I really enjoy sometimes.
I'm amazed that in 1987 that there was online like ufology like bulletin board meeting groups. Like how'd Chris Rock even know about that?
That's like that's pre-internet, right? Way before the internet.
Yeah, I feel like there maybe were some parts to the puzzle that we didn't get answers to, or But that was an interesting one, though. Morgan Richter, what was that? morganrichter.com or .net if you want to go check out more of her stuff. And she's also on Twitter. But I thought she did a great job breaking down the episode in a digestible way, and being able to show all of the parts of the episode. So
yeah, she did outstanding job. Do you think, Pat, that Chris Rock even remembers that? Like if he was in an interview, they're like, I mean, you would think that you wouldn't forget, but then maybe you'd be surprised with how many projects these actors and comedians do. What do you think? Do you think he remembers that?
I have a feeling that he would remember, especially if that was like his first television appearance. I wouldn't forget being on a show with Don Johnson in the 80s. Don Johnson was a big deal at that particular time.
But Pat, you also have like a photographic memory to anything related to pop culture. I remember Different Strokes, season 3, episode 4.
Yeah, well, I would like to explore that one. There is a part where there's an alien, supposedly.
In what?
In Different Strokes. There's one episode.
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, Willis?
Yeah, no, seriously, I think he's buddies with Gary Coleman in that or something. He's like a next door neighbor. I'll explore it. We can go down that rabbit hole someday.
Oh my dear Lord, I had no idea.
Yeah, there's a cool thing about 80s sitcoms that there were several that touched on aliens. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I was just gonna read you some of the guest stars that were on there. So yeah, Julia Roberts was on there at one point, Liam Neeson, Bruce Willis, Helena Bonham Carter, Annette Bening, Benicio del Toro, James Brown, of course, Miles Davis, Phil Collins. I would have loved seen that episode with Phil Collins. But yeah, man, that's been another Pop Culture Corner and good times.
I want to thank you for digging up that Miami Vice UFO connection. I had no idea that something out there like that existed. And it's fun researching these pop culture topics, for our new little segment that you've got. You're doing awesome with it. Back to the Elk Abduction. I told some folks at work about it. Everybody wants to know what our new project is that we're working on for this week. And I sketched out some pictures of a craft, picking up an elk. And I just kind of leave them around some podiums for people to find, and we're getting some buzz created, just by leaving little hints around. There's some folks that are looking forward to these lessons every week.
Can you bring one of those drawings with you next time?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to see this.
Crooks, I need to talk to you. Have you been leaving elk drawings around the workplace?
Yeah. Yeah, and well, I love Google Maps, so I'll pull up the map on the computer and I'll show people where the subject took place, on the map, something that we're researching. And yeah, there's folks that definitely like my hand drawings.
I was hoping that maybe are frameable. Can you frame them?
There's some of these people that collect them already. So yeah, these are collectibles.
I hope you're numbering them. I'd like to hear you number them like lithographs.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you guys are nutters.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'm hoping has Angie seen any of the episodes?
I don't know if she's seen them, but she knows about it. She's probably looked at a few of them.
Okay, good deal.
But I think her seeing us doing this reminded her that her own husband has a YouTube channel, and she's trying to get on him to start creating more content again.
Oh man, what's his YouTube channel about?
He makes just little kind of short films.
Oh.
Yeah, they're kind of interesting.
Well, I'll have to get the information from you at some point.
Yeah.
I'm curious now. Especially when you're connected to people that have this kind of thing out there. I'm always curious what people are creating.
Well, that cat has got an abduction story to tell.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, he was just your typical stray tomcat hanging around the neighborhood, but Scraps abducted him, took him back to their facility and neutered him, clipped the corner of his ear off, and then brought him back and dropped him off. So that's got to be similar to whatever these elk or these people that get abducted to go through.
Yeah, well, Mel's Hole is right in the center of the state in near Ellensburg, Washington, home to Central Washington University and the Ellensburg Rodeo. I don't know. I don't know why that one came out, but
all right, take two.
Okay.
So all right, take two.
Okay.
Oh, I love it.
All right.
You got to find an alien story.
There is an alien story.
What?
There's one episode of the Golden Girls that involves an alien.
No way.
Yeah. So if you want to go down that route at some point, we can do it.
You are blowing my mind, Dundas. Good Lord.
Yeah, man. That's the thing, though. Watching Golden Girls as a kid and then watching Golden Girls as an adult, man, there was some racy content. Those ladies were their comedic chops, man. They were really flirting with the line with the censors.
Your grandma's like, earmuffs, Patrick, earmuffs.
Yeah, I would have never. All that stuff flew over my head watching as a kid, but now watching as an adult, I'm like, ooh, man. Blanche, she really was a hit with the guys.
Yeah, Blanche was quite risque.
Yeah, she was a woman about town. She was living Miami life to the fullest. Lesson 7, my friends. I tell you what, man, what did we do today, Crooks? What did we talk about?
Well, we talked about UFOs. We talked about abductions. We talked about a pop culture crossover with Miami Vice of all things. And we teased our next Mel's Hole potential show. So it's been a big day.